It could be Motivational Monday. It could be your Mindful Monday, or it could be another Monday on the Other Side podcast, where I am here. You're with me, Janelle Villiers, your host. I am all about the other side of healthy mental mindset. That is what the other side is. And so if this is the first time that you're with me here today, thank you. I'm so happy you're here. That means that you're really into mental health and wellness as well. I'm really excited because we have an amazing guest today, which is the first of its kind here on the show. And I'm really excited to welcome her as well. But I do want to tell you guys what our topic is. So the topic today is life and our triggers. And I think that the guest that we have today is the perfect person to bring on to talk about this topic. She is a queen living in her own queendom, where she is a serial entrepreneur, a holistic life and wellness coach. And I've seen her really transform different women in her life, or different queens in her life, so that they really are not just focusing on their physical health, but they really are having a change in their mental health and overall well-being, which I think is amazing. She recently just published a book, which we're going to talk about. I'm really excited about as well. Please help me welcome to the stage, Ashley Major.
So I have so many clients that tell me, hey Ash, I don't eat breakfast. I'm not a breakfast person. But do y'all even know the truth about breakfast? Let me tell you. So
there she is.
oh my, watching that video, I can't stop smiling because it's like, oh, okay, this is live. Thank you for that amazing introduction, and thank you for having me here on the show.
Well, I'm like ecstatic, as you know, and shout out to Tennille who said hello. Tennille, we see you. Thank you for joining us live. I tell everybody who's not familiar with you, can you just tell everyone a little bit how you got into the health and wellness space?
Sure. So for those of you that aren't familiar with me, my name is Ashley Major. And while I've been a part of health and wellness for a really long time, actually started my journey back in 2009, believe it or not. But life happened. I, got away from, my basic habit. And during the pandemic, I decided, okay, now is the best time to actually dive in. And so during those years between 2011 and 2020, when the pandemic really hit back home in the Bahamas, I've been juggling with weight loss, trying to keep the weight off, and mentally it took a toll on me, and I've been doing so many diet fads. It was crazy, but during the pandemic I had all the time in the world to focus on, and so that is what brought me back into the wellness space. But during that time, I decided to share my journey with a lot of the ladies on my WhatsApp, actually. And I was able to create a group from that WhatsApp and inspire and help a lot of ladies on their journey. So from January 2020, I started my journey I think it was about April 2020 is when I started the group. And then November of 2020 is when I launched my business.
Wow. And I love how businesses start from like this need that someone's like, oh, I see the need that I can actually help and fill, right? And so from that, you just feel inspired then to continue doing your business. So I love that.
Yes, it was an interesting transition, especially because I had COVID hit. It knocked out my income completely because I was in the travel space and I needed another source of income. And I saw not only was I helping ladies get results, but this could also be a way that I can earn an additional stream of income. So that's what really brought it all.
I mean, it totally makes sense. I mean, why not, right? Like make money by doing something that you really have a passion for and that you really can see is helping other people. So I love that. Well, now that people have an understanding as to like who you are, how you even got involved in this space, you and I have had some conversations off camera about wellness and about like the other side besides the physical side, the side that we can all see. Talk to us a little bit about your own journey into your own mental health and let's get into the topic itself. Triggers. Was there a way in which that is there something in a tool, an exercise, something that you have done in your life that has helped you identify triggers in the first place? Because I think that's half the battle, right? We just need to identify the triggers first. And then once we're aware, there's something we can do about it. But how are you even able to identify what some of your triggers were?
So first and foremost, we first need to know what are triggers, right?
Yeah.
And triggers are anything that elicit a strong emotional response. It could be positive, it could be negative, but anything that elicit a strong response is considered a trigger. And so, I've been on this journey of finding myself for a really long time. I started back in 2014. And during that time, there's always levels to anything that you're doing. But I found that, okay, I got through a certain phase in my life. I was able to navigate that and elevate from it. And then something else happened. And I realized I found myself being back in a space where I'm feeling the same emotions. I am, excuse me. I thought I was over this, but clearly I'm not, because it's still affecting me. Like, what really is happening? And so back in 2021, I had a major loss in my life, and I realized that a lot of the feelings and the emotions that's going through were from unhealed trauma. And I realized that I had so many triggers, because I was the type of person that would just, okay, I went through this. I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm going to deal with it in this moment and then move on. But I wasn't really...
Pause.
Sorry.
If you can relate to just that alone, you recognize that something has just happened and you're like, I'm not going to deal with this. This was a big deal, but I'm going to move forward. We're not going to think about it. What's in the past is in the past. I'm moving on. So relatable. I've definitely been there. Okay. Yes. And so you recognize that this is one of the things that you do. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And, and to stick a point in what I was saying, but to just go back to that, a lot of it is a coping mechanism. It's a way for us to just continue without having to really dive deep into what's going on. And I learned this later on, but now that I know it, right? I can share that. But so I realized that I wasn't really dealing with anything. I just was moving on. And at this point in my life, I went into a really deep depression. And so because of that, I needed to figure out like what was happening, why was it happening? I needed to deal with, the issues that, probably brought this to the forefront, like things in the past that I've never dealt with. And so I found myself, I've never been but during this season of my life, I cried almost every single and it was crazy, because my mom even told me, she was like, I've never seen you cry this much, like not even as a child, like what is going on? And so that was one of the turning points in my life, and really figuring out like what is happening. And so what I started to do was journal. I started to introspect. I started to reflect on, things that happened, things that I never dealt with, and what was happening in my life that was causing these emotional responses, but also where they were stemming from. Because they're not just stemming from what's happening today. They're deep rooted, because I was literally being triggered. And so I needed to figure out what those were, and I did. And I did that through really journaling and connect.
So I love journaling. I think it's a great method to pause and really like think about what you're feeling. I don't know. I love your hot take on this, but I feel like, I don't know if like our Western society or culture almost like looks down on having emotions. It's almost like it makes you weak, something's wrong with you. And yet, as human beings, that's what we're supposed to have. Like we have emotions, right? It's what makes us human. And so it's this weird thing where we have to like ignore our humanity in order to be seen as like a functioning human, when in actuality, ignoring the emotions and ignoring things emotions that have happened come up in the past based on traumatic events or different things that we may have been through in life. It's this weird, I'm just identifying like it's this weird thing that many people do. And if there's a societal pressure to like ignore your feelings. And I'm recognizing it's like a cultural thing too. You know, you think it's, I don't know, sometimes you think I think it's just me, but I recognize that I am falling prey to like this cultural normative thing. And it's actually really revolutionary almost to identify your emotions and to be able to speak to them and honor them. So this is like a thing that's like happening right now in my mind, but please tell me what your thoughts are on that.
So I think it also stems from our parents' upbringing, right? So how they were raised, they passed that down. And so they were not taught how to handle their emotions. And I saw this along my journey, right? If you are not taught by somebody that is emotionally intelligent how to handle your emotions, chances are you are not going to know how to navigate handling your emotions. And so, a lot of times, and I'm from the Bahamas, we get whooping. So I remember, Mom, if you're watching this, I love you. She was the disciplinarian in the house, but she would say, if you cry, I'm going to beat you more, right? And so a lot of times you would be like, oh, okay, I'm not going to cry. And so I found that was one of my coping mechanisms as a child, because me and my sister used to fight a lot. So we used to get in trouble a lot. And so, as a child, learning how to not cry when you're being punished, that actually fit into my adulthood. And so when everything broke down, like it really broke. And so I really had to take a step back and look back, reflect, and see like, okay, why is this to me in this way and so dramatically? And how do I now pivot from this, grow from this, learn from this, and not allow this to affect me like this anymore?
So many people have now heard me talk about my book. And so one of the things, Janelle has a comment for you. Island Gal.
Yep.
I'm going to cry about with my
book. Yeah. Keep up.
Yeah. Totally relatable. So one of the things I talk about in my book is that a lot of times the triggers lead people to think things like, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm a bad person, I'm a bad parent, I'm unlovable, I'm unworthy of anything, I'm unworthy of success, I'm unworthy of love, just not enough, right? And I've like, in knowing that and doing the research, I know that that's defined as shame-based thinking. But if we just take off the definition for a moment, if that's what you're feeling, right? Because you've somehow, some situation has happened and you immediately switch into those kinds of thoughts. I think for me, that's what was one of the things that helped me identify like, oh, I've been triggered, because I immediately identified, why am I thinking this over and over and over again? Like in my head, I'm a bad person, I'm awful, I'm unworthy, I'm unlovable, I'm this, I'm whatever, like literally like a cycle, like over and over and over in my head. And so I think once I was able to even identify what thoughts go along with those feelings is when I was able to identify, oh, I was just triggered, like something just happened in my life that like, and then I can say, okay, what was that trigger? What was that thing? So anyway, for me, I've written about this, and I just feel like also I haven't talked about this as much, but I also want to say that it's a bit empowering as well to be able to identify that, because I think otherwise you just think like you're crazy, right? Because you're just in your head.
And I think also what helps you to be able to identify those things is knowing where you want to be in your life or how you want to show up in your life. Because now, and I think this is what had helped me in this process initially, now that I'm thinking back on it. But I was in a space where, okay, this is how I want my life to live. This is how I want to show up in my. And so when these things kept happening, and after that traumatic experience, and I just broke down, I'm like, okay, I'm not living in alignment with who I want to be and who I see myself as. And so being able to recognize that this emotion is out of alignment with who I want to be. Like, why am I reacting this way? That is what ultimately allowed me to really figure out what my triggers were, because now this is not who I want to be. This is not who I see myself as. So why am I showing up as this person?
Mm-hmm.
And I get it when you say about feeling crazy with the thoughts running through your head, because you get that overwhelming feeling of, okay, and like you say, why is this running through my head? So yes.
Put a one in the chat if this is relatable. One's in the chat. One's in the chat if this is relatable, please. We can't be the only ones, right? I say this also because I feel like also people don't talk about this stuff enough. I feel like more people should be talking about this. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to create this podcast, is to speak life to these types of, these types of conversations, normalize some of this thinking. I think also to even what you said like you recognize that you weren't in alignment with who you wanted to be. That's major. And I don't know if people have anybody in their life that they can even talk to about that when they're like, oh, see, we got a one in the chat. Definitely relatable. But I don't like, how many people have someone in their lives that they can talk to and say just that? I really feel like I'm not living in alignment with who I want to be. There's probably some shame around that too, right? Like if you make the recognition and then you're like, oh, I'm a bad person because I'm not in alignment.
Yeah.
And then you don't want to like speak to it. But I think there's a lot of bravery in even admitting it to yourself. And I think, again, it's one of the reasons why I want to build and create a space where people can have these types of conversations, because it's really important that we can, because it's only with voicing something like that and recognizing, oh yeah, I'm not in alignment. I'm missing where I want to be and where I am right now. That I think allows us to then take a moment, reposition ourselves, so that way we can start to make changes and get ourselves back in alignment. So I really just want to acknowledge that, like, to even identify that you weren't in alignment, that took some bravery and some vulnerability on your part to even recognize that and like say it to yourself. I don't know. Did you say it to anybody out loud?
So I didn't in that moment. I will tell you, I went through the pits. I say the pits because it was the pit by myself. Because a part of it was because I made some decisions that I know that I wasn't supposed to make, and it was coming back to me. It was really, being in a space where I couldn't handle it. And everything that was happening was a reaction or a consequence because of the decisions that I had made. And so I was ashamed to acknowledge it. I was very ashamed to acknowledge it. And so what really, really helped me was writing it, talking to God, connecting with God, and just really journaling about what I was going through and how I was now.
Okay, so I love that. We started talking about the journaling, and I'm really glad that you brought that back up because, well, two reasons. But number one, I was saying it really helps you to slow down and to like think about what are the emotions that you're having. And I'm curious, I guess this leads us to the second reason why I'm glad you brought that up. Because I'm curious as to like, how do you know what to write down? For someone who's like wants to journal, but like doesn't know what to say and doesn't know what's the right thing to put down in the journal, like what would you advise them on?
So when I started this journey, I honestly just wrote down how I was feeling and why I was feeling this way, like what was happening to make me feel this. And so I didn't really understand why I was feeling this way in the beginning, but just writing it down, seeing what exactly transpired that got me in this emotional state, that got me feeling this way. And then now what we call go back, right? We reverse analyze it. So now I'm starting from the end, but now I'm trying to figure out, okay, what has happened that has led up to this? Why do I feel this way? And so a great exercise that helps me navigate this is an exercise that I use with my clients all the time called 7 levels deep. Okay. And so 7 levels deep is you identify what's happening and then you ask yourself why. And then you keep asking yourself why. So you ask yourself why based on, okay, the initial response. And now you ask yourself why based on the second response. And you keep going until you get to the bottom. Okay. Usually you'll find clarity around level 5, maybe level 6, but you I stop at level 7 normally with my clients, but I tell them, hey, if you feel like this is not it, keep going. Keep going until you figure it out, until you get to the bottom and you have that epiphany, right? Aha, this is it. This is why. And so that's really where I started. Just writing down why is this happening? Why am I feeling this way? What, and really going deep. And a lot of times I realize that we are afraid to face out. Yeah, afraid to put the mirror in front of us and look at what is happening and who we truly are, because oftentimes we have a false sense of self. And so, really putting that mirror in front of yourself and being vulnerable with yourself, because this is where you show up authentic. Because if you can't be true to yourself, you can't be true to anyone, and you can't expect people to be true to you in return. You have to love yourself the way that you want others to love you. And if that looks like being true to yourself, then you need to put that mirror in front of you and face whatever reality comes up. And so, that has been, journaling has really helped me to navigate, that part. So if you are new to journaling, write down how you're feeling, what emotions are coming up, what happened, and then just keep going deep. Why did this happen? Why do you feel this way? And keep going deep.
I love that. 7 levels. That's really, really good. I also talk a lot about mirrors as well. One of my ways for getting on the other side of shame-based thinking, it's an acronym called the LIFE. I won't get into all of it, but the F stands for find your good mirrors. And your good mirrors are the people in your life who can remind you of who you really are. I like to say that, like, imagine you lived in a house that only had a funny mirror. So instead of being 5'3" and, normal builds, you're 3 feet by 3 feet in this funny mirror, right? And that growing up, it's the only mirror you have. And so you just think, I'm 3 feet by 3 feet. That's just what I am. And then you go over to a friend's house and they've got like a normal mirror. And then you look at yourself and you're like, your mirrors, you got like a funny mirror in your house. It's not what it looks like. And then they're like, no, my friend, that is an accurate mirror. This is what, no, I'm 3 feet by 3. What are you talking about? You are not, right? Like, and so that's what it's like to have shame-based thinking, because typically it's a message that you received when you were younger, some sort of trauma that happened when you were younger. And so if that's what your whole life has been, like this funny mirror, you need the good mirrors in your life to remind you of who you really are. Anyway, so what you just said, like, totally aligns with that. Like, you need people around you, yes, but even more importantly, or just as important, probably equally important, is for you to be able to look at the normal mirror and recognize, oh yeah, this really is me. I love that. So, okay, here's the other thing. You have recently published a book. She's an author. Everybody who's been following me knows that I say 2024 is the year of the published author. And I'm really excited because your book has to do with the journaling topic that we've been talking about. So tell everybody a little bit about your journal and what inspired you to write this.
So the journal is called Get to Know Yourself in 30 Days. And it is a beginner's guide to self-discovery. So what inspired me to write this book was really my self-discovery journey, right? And it's an ongoing journey. So it's a never-ending process, because every level you find something new about yourself, you discover something new, and you have to navigate that. But for somebody that is just trying to find themselves and just trying to navigate who they really are, this is the perfect journal, because it asks the basic questions initially, but then it also asks questions that you probably have never even thought about. You haven't even given it any thought. But on the outside, people are looking at you and they are judging you based on some of these questions. And so having the awareness of who you are in this moment, on this topic, like, what are your values? What are your beliefs? Where do you stand? And how does it align with who you think you are and who you feel you are? Really navigating that. This is what this journal does. So it does it over a course of 32 days. So the first day is really just you painting the picture of who you are in this present moment. And at the end of the journal, based on the responses that you gave, throughout the month, now you can figure out, okay, is the person who I said I was in the beginning, is it actually the person I am through this? I've discovered who I am through this process. And so it allows you to take the initial steps to figure out, okay, am I living in alignment? And if you're not, what you need to do to start living in alignment. So it's really just starting the process of getting to know yourself. And it has a lot of scripture verses. Every day you have a scripture verse and an affirmation. And the reason I provided those as well to go along with the question is because we're not here on our own. I'm a firm believer in God, and we are not here on our own. And so being able to, seek guidance from above and seek guidance through scripture, definitely helps us, but also having the positive self-talk, because sometimes we are our own worst critics. And so having an affirmation that can align with where you want to be on this journey, and a positive affirmation that can help keep you on track and keep you positive about what it is that you want. I thought it was ideal to go along with the journal prompt. So it is a guided journal, and it's available on Amazon.
Love it. Love it. So don't you guys worry. I hooked you up. In the description below, you can find all of Ashley's information. You can find her Instagram, her Facebook, her TikTok, and her website. So you can go ahead and cop that book, because we all need a journal with prompts. I am really big on the prompts, because sometimes, especially for those first-time journalers, I think it's such a gift that you have given them to be able to have a place to start, and then like a place to go, and then they can look back and see like how they've changed in a matter of 30 days. Like, you can do anything for 30 days. I think that's amazing. That's awesome.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me here, Janelle. And I'm available. If you guys have any questions, feel free to hit me up on any of the social media platforms. I will respond. Just let me know that you saw me here and what your questions are, and I will answer.
And so I also want to make a huge announcement. For those of you, again, following me on social media, you know that I have just launched first ever 2-day virtual book tour summit. Really excited. 2024 is the year of the author. And so day 1 is for all of the aspiring authors who are like completely overwhelmed by what the process is to self-publish, how to write, how to edit, and how to self-publish. And I even know the steps on how to get you to become a bestseller. All of those things, I'm going to go over all of that on day 1. And day 2, we're going to have 3 authors, myself, and I am announcing the second author who's going to be with us, and the third is coming soon. But right now, I'm really excited to say that Ashley's going to be our second author. So day 2, you're going to meet with the authors, and we're going to talk to you guys about our books. We'll have a little bit more in-depth conversation about the subject matter of each one. And even like more, I guess, specifically for the aspiring authors, we'll share some tips and some tricks and things that, that we did in order to get our books out. So that way you guys can learn from our lessons as well. Congratulations.
Thanks, ladies. Thanks, queens.
This is amazing. Well, I can't wait to see you on the virtual book tour. If you guys are wondering, that is March 27th and March 28th. So please put that in your calendars. I will also put that information in the description, because I just realized I didn't put it there, but I think it's because I was waiting for the big reveal. So now I'll put it there. And please, please, please follow Ashley on social media. There it is, the information for the virtual book tour summit. See Ashley's beautiful face there. And I can't wait to have you back on the show, because we can probably talk about this for a lot longer. This has been amazing. Thank you, everyone who's come on and joined us. I will see you next Monday. I'll be back. I promise. Have a wonderful night, everyone.
Have a great night, everyone. Thanks again, Janelle.